So everyone, I want to welcome everyone back to Kodel Kol Shira in partnership with Breslov.org and of course Yeshiva Teret Shimon. For all of our listeners all around the world and of course our viewers here on Zoom live, Baruch Hashem. And okay, so this is a very it's a bittersweet parsha, right? Vayechi, right? It's a beautiful parsha, but this is what we're ending a tekufa, right? We're ending a tekufa now. The tekufa of Masa Bereshis and the Avos Hakadoshim and the Imois. And we're starting the Shibud. We're starting the Shibud, which is actually starting the next Kufa of Klal Yisrael, right? We're starting the Kufa of Klal Yisrael. The Medrash says that Yaakov Avinu lived 17 years. The Parsha's name is Vayechi. So Vayechi is the gematria of 34. 34. It comes to 34. What's the significance of 34? So Yaakov lived in Mitzrayim. The Torah tells us he lived for 17 years. Right? 17 years. 17 is the gematria of Tov. Right? That's good, right? Tov. We like Tov, right? We like Tov. Tov is good. But if you take 17 years, and Yosef Tzaddik was 17 years, he lived with Yaakov before that fatal day that Yaakov sent him out. Remember, we learned about that. That he wasn't melaveh him. He didn't escort him. And Yosef HaTzadik went and he got sold that day, right? And he was 17 years old. So 17 years he lived with Yaakov. Everything was great. And then another 17 years in Mitzrayim. So take the two, 17 and 17 is 34. And that's Vayechi. Those were the years of those were the precious years of Yaakov Avinu's life, the years that he had with Yosef HaTzadik. So it's something to think about. It's something very, very, very beautiful. So let's see. We could talk about. There's so many different things to talk about in the parsha. All right. Let's see. We could talk about here. It says like this. Rashi brings Vayikrevu Yemei Yisrael Lamos. Right. Vayikrevu Yemei Yisrael Lamos. So Rashi brings, so why does the Torah say that it was close to the time to the death of Yisrael's death, of Yaakov's death? So why does it say vayikrevu? Right? So Rashi says anytime that you have this lashon of akriva, of coming close, that means it's hinting to that the person is not living to the years of their father. Shorter life than the father. For example, we know Yaakov Avinu lived for 147 years, right? 147. Yitzchak Avinu lived for 180 years. So that was less. We see the same lashon when it came to David HaMelech. Vayikrevu Yemei Lamos, right? What was that? Because David HaMelech, we know, lived 70 years. And Yishai, David HaMelech's father, lived 400 years. 400 years. Unbelievable. It was one of the tzaddikim that left the world without sin. Unbelievable. The Gemara says he was one of the tzaddikim that left the world without sin. Fascinating. Right? Binyamin was another one, right? Binyamin. Right? Okay. Let's see. Let's go on. Then it says, Yaakov Avinu says to Yosef HaTzadik, he says, make me a shvuah, swear to me that you won't bury me in Mitzrayim. Right? That's what he says, right? We all know that. Swear to me. Al no tikvereni b'Mitzrayim. Don't bury me in Mitzrayim. Well, Rashi says on that, Al no tikvereni b'Mitzrayim. That what? Why? Because Yaakov Avinu didn't want to be in the earth, buried in the earth of Mitzrayim. Why? Because in a little while later, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings the 10 makos, the 10 plagues on Egypt, one of the plagues is the Kenan. right? The kinim, the little kinim. And the earth was filled with kinim. And Yaakov Avinu didn't want to be amongst the kinim, the plague of Mitzrayim. That's what Rashi says. It's a beautiful understanding, one of them anyway, where Yaakov Avinu wanted to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael. Okay. The Sfarim say actually, that if someone dies in Eretz Yisrael, so then, and they're buried in Eretz Yisrael, so then their neshama goes directly up to Shemayim. Where, if a person dies outside of Eretz Yisrael, wherever that may be, and they're buried there, so a part of the neshama stays with the guf. It doesn't leave completely. It's one of the reasons why Moshe Rabbeinu was not buried in Eretz Yisrael, but he was outside of Eretz Yisrael. So therefore we can always connect to the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu, because the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu is still here in the world. He's still here in the world. Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama is still here in the world. We learned a lot about that, and we can always attach ourselves to the tzaddik. So Yaakov Avinu says, don't bury me in Mitzrayim. Okay. Now, what was the problem? The problem was like this. Also, Rashi brings another interesting idea. He brings the other idea on this idea. Why didn't he want to be buried in Mitzrayim? He brings the second idea was what? Because by Tchias HaMesim, we know that the Tchias HaMesim takes place in Eretz Yisrael, takes place in Israel, doesn't take place outside of Israel. So the bodies will have to roll, whatever that means. I'm not sure. But this is, again, you can look at it in Rashi, that the bodies that are buried outside of Eretz Yisrael will have to roll over to Eretz Yisrael. So I guess if somebody's buried, let's say in Syria or in Lebanon or in Jordan, that's not such a big trip, right? I mean, if someone's buried in Australia, that could be a very big trip for the body, right? They're buried in Australia, they have to make that trip all the way back. Unbelievable. All right, but either way. So Tchias HaMesim, all right? Also, he said that he didn't want to be buried, and perhaps this is the main reason why. He didn't want to be buried in Mitzrayim because he didn't want the Mitzrayim to make him into an idol. Why would you think the Mitzrayim would make Yaakov into an idol? So we know that Yaakov Avinu came down to Mitzrayim in the second year of the famine. It was the second year of the famine. Yaakov Avinu makes his way down to Mitzrayim. We know when he came down to Mitzrayim, the famine stopped. The bracha of the tzaddik came to Mitzrayim, the famine stopped in Mitzrayim. There was no famine. So much so that when he came there, the Nile overflowed. And we learned about that. The blessing of Mitzrayim was with the Nile River would overflow. And it would irrigate all of the fields. It would irrigate everything, all of the fields with it around the area of the Nile. Paro's palace was actually around the Nile. It was very close to the Nile. As we know, next week's parsha, right, in Shemais, when Miriam puts the casket of Moshe Rabbeinu in the water, that was the Nile, and she put his casket into the water, and it floated down the river towards the palace. And then we know that Basia, the daughter of Pari, was bathing, remember? And she stretched her arm out. So we know that the palace was closed. The Medrash says that when Yaakov came, Pari was so amazed because the Nile overflowed so much that even his feet got wet on the throne. The water entered into the palace. But it was such a blessing. I guess they weren't worried then about mold and all the other stuff. It was a very big blessing for them. And Pari was amazed by that. So Yaakov Avinu was afraid. Yaakov Avinu was afraid that if now he passes away, they're going to bury him in Mitzrayim, they're going to turn him into a deity, and they'll wind up, and he did not want that. And perhaps I believe that's the most important reason why. That's the most important reason why I believe, that's my personal opinion, why Yaakov Avinu didn't want to be buried in Mitzrayim. Now, we go on in the Parsha, and Yosef Hatzadik brings both Menashe and Ephraim to Yaakov Avinu to get a blessing. Right, the famous story, and Yaakov Avinu put his right hand on the hand of Ephraim, which was the younger son, and he put his left hand on the hand of Menashe, on the hand of Menashe, right? And what he did was, it's called, he was shikel, it's yadav, he switched his hands, and then Yosef said, wait a second, Dad, don't forget that, Menashe is the older one. So Yaakov Avinu said, I know, my son, I know, but Ephraim is going to be great. He's going to be great, perhaps greater than even, perhaps even greater than Menashe. Therefore, I'm putting my right hand on Ephraim's hand. And that's amazing. Now, Yaakov Avinu was so amazed when it came to an Ephraim and Menashe, when he came to them, the two of these boys. Something was different about them than all the other his whole family. And what was that? What was different about them? They were born in Egypt. They weren't born in Canaan. They weren't born in Hebron. They weren't born amongst Yaakov Avinu and the Shvatim. They were born in Egypt. It was known as the land of Ervas Haaretz. It's a land of impurity. And that's where they were born. Yaakov Avinu was amazed to see what great people these were. They were wonderful. They were mamish wonderful. He couldn't believe it. And where did they learn this from? Their father, Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef HaTzadik was able to teach them, and Yosef HaTzadik was able to bring them up with that Yiras Hashem and the Ahavas Hashem that only Yosef HaTzadik could have done in the land of Mitzrayim. And we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent Yosef HaTzadik down to Mitzrayim in order to do the foundation, the footwork, the preparation work, to lay the groundwork for Klal Yisrael to be successful in Mitzrayim. We know when we were in Mitzrayim, we did a lot of things wrong, right? But one of the things we didn't do wrong, we were not immoral. We were not immoral when we were in Mitzrayim, and that's accredited to Yosef HaTzadik. You see what a beautiful thing, how Yosef's children were born in the land of Mitzrayim, in the most impure place. But yet they grew up to be great Erlich Yidden. That was an amazing thing. Yaakov Avinu loved that. Yaakov Avinu was so admired. And not only that, Yaakov Avinu said, these are my boys. They're like Reuben and Shimon. These are my boys. These are my boys like Reuben and Shimon, he said. Unbelievable. And we know what happened, right? We know that the Shvatim are 12 Shvatim, 12 tribes. We know that Levi was not counted. Levi is not counted when it comes to the inheritance of the land. Why? Because Levi doesn't get an inheritance in the land. And Yosef was divided into two. Ephraim and Menashe took over the place for Yosef. So therefore, if you take Levi out and you take Yosef out, but you put in Ephraim and Menashe, there you still have your 12. Okay, and that's how you have the 12, and that's why he said, Yaakov Avinu said, that they'll be to me as Reuven and Shimon, and that's an important message for us to really understand. I think a very important message to understand. All right, now, after that, Yaakov Avinu gives brachas to all of the Shvatim. He gives brachas to all of the tribes. He starts out with giving the bracha to Reuven. And he gives Reuven the bracha, his bracha, but he gives him rebuke. He gives Reuven rebuke. The question's asked, why is he rebuking Reuven? What happened? So we know the story that happened many years ago when Rachel passed away at childbirth with Binyamin. So Yaakov Avinu took his bed, his couch, his bed, and put it into the tent of Bilhah. Remember? Bilhah, the maidservant of Rachel. Reuven said, wait a second. Hey. What about my mother Leah? My mother Leah? Why should my father be with Bilhah, the maidservant, if he can be with his wife Leah? So he took Yaakov's bed and he put Yaakov's bed in the tent of Leah. Now Yaakov Avinu is rebuking him now for doing that. Could you imagine that? He waited all these years. He didn't say anything. He never said anything. He only talks about it now. You know that Yaakov Avinu was concerned. He was really, really, truly concerned that if he would give rebuke to Reuven, if he would rebuke Reuven, perhaps Reuven will leave and he'll go and join the camp with Esav. Could you believe that? Yaakov Avinu was afraid that Reuven would leave and go to Esav. And therefore he didn't tell him anything over the years. Only now he's about to pass away does he rebuke him. Only now. Now again, we spoke about that. In other words, really, Reuven, what he did was not bad, but he didn't discuss it with Yaakov. He didn't discuss it with him. Had he have gone and said, Dad, I would like to have a talk with you. And Dad, I think that you should really please show a little honor to my mother Leah. And let Yaakov Avinu make the decision. Don't make the decision for him. You see the difference? Ernie, do you understand that? In other words, if he would have said to Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov, my dear father, look, I would prefer if you can please. I know you loved Rachel. I know that. She passed away. But now Leah is still her sister. Her sister is still better, more important than a maidservant. So spend your time with my my mother. And again, let's not forget, Leah still gave birth to 6 of the Shvatim. Right? Leah had given birth to 6 of the Shvatim. Better than Bilhah, better than Zilpah, and so on. Okay. But again, Reuven, we know, did tshuva over the years. We know that. We spoke about it when Yosef was being sold. Right? That time when the brothers wanted to kill him. Reuven said, don't kill him. Put him into the pit. And Reuven wanted to instead to take him out. And remember, we spoke about the idea, just to review for a moment, that Reuven, it was his day to be Mishamesh Yitzchak. That was his day. And we said that was the day that he was involved in fasting, and he was wearing sackcloth. Because he was doing tshuva. He was doing tshuva for what he did. And we know that he was always doing tshuva. But Yaakov Avinu wanted to just settle the score. And he wanted to settle the score, but he waited to do that till he was going to pass away. Fascinating idea. And he gives all the brachas to all the shvatim. That's really the brachas, and if you read through them, it's for all of Klal Yisrael. It's for all of us. And we can find these brachas in our lives. We can find these ideas. The ideas are for all eternity, for all of Klal Yisrael. Because again, we are the descendants of the Shiftei Ka. We are the descendants of the Shvatim. Every one of us. So the brachas all pertain to us as well. All also pertain to us. And let's never forget that. Never forget that. Now, we know, going on in the parsha, many things happen in this parsha. All right. After this, Yaakov Avinu, it says that he gathered himself in to his nation. It never says that he died. It never ever says, the Gemara says, Yaakov Avinu loy meis. The Torah never uses the lashon, doesn't use the language of his death. where it talks about in other tzaddikim, it says that they died. It says that Moshe Rabbeinu died. Doesn't say that Yaakov Avinu died. Interesting, just an interesting point. Okay, just so you should know. Now it says that that they embalmed Yaakov's body for 40 days. Right? Paro, Yosef was given the instructions by Paro to do this. One second. Excuse me. Yaakov Avinu was embalmed for 40 days. And then we know for 30 days after that, they mourned the death. The Egyptians mourned the death of Yaakov Avinu for 30 days. Fascinating. Because of that they did this, later on, Paro was actually rewarded. Paro was rewarded for showing respect to Yaakov Avinu. Right? He was rewarded. What happened? We know later on when it comes to Kriyas Yamsuf, right? When it comes to Kriyas Yamsuf, right? The splitting of the sea, and the Egyptians were chasing after us, and the sea split. And we spoke about it. What did it see? It saw the Aron of Yosef HaTzadik. We're going to talk about that in Me'arat HaMachpelah. It saw the casket of Yosef HaTzadik, and it split. All the Mitzrayim drowned, except for Parai. Parai didn't drown because he did a tova for Yaakov Avinu. Much later, it says, do you remember the story with Yonah? The story with Yonah, right? The story with Yonah when he got swallowed into the whale, right? He was on a mission. Yonah was on a mission from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted Yonah to go to the city of Nineveh. Remember the city of Nineveh? And he came to the city of Nineveh, and he gave them 40 days to do tshuva. Again, 40 days, because of the 40 days that they embalmed Yaakov Avinu's body. Fascinating. Just something interesting. A lot of interesting things that come out of these parshas. It's fascinating. When you look into the parshas, it's really something really, really, truly amazing. Let's go further into the parsha now. We're going to go further in. It says now, we know when Yaakov Avinu met Esav, he was worried. Remember that time when he was coming back from Lavan? He was coming back from Lavan, and then Esav had the 400 men. Remember that story? Right? So Yaakov Avinu was very worried. Why was he worried? So it says there was katanti mikol chasodim. Right? It said that he felt little because of all of the chesed that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for him, and he thought maybe he didn't have any more merits. But he was worried about Esav. And what was he worried about Esav? Two things. While Yaakov Avinu was away, he wasn't living in Israel, right? He was living in Chora, right? He was over there. He was somewhere in Macedonia. He wasn't in Israel. So he didn't have the mitzvah of Yishav Haaretz. Esav did. Esav had that. Esav lived in Eretz Yisrael. And Esav was working with Yitzchak Avinu the whole time, and he was honoring his father the entire time, where Yaakov was away for 22 years, and he didn't have that schus. He had the schus of going because his father told him to go. His father did tell him to go. His parents did tell him to go to Haran to get married and to stay away from Esav. Right? Remember that. His parents did tell him. But Esav was there for the 22 years, and he was serving Yitzchak Avinu. And because he was serving Yitzchak Avinu, Yaakov Avinu was worried that he had these two mitzvahs, these two very important mitzvahs, Kibbutz Av and Yishav Haaretz, living in the land of Israel. Two very important mitzvahs. So it says now, when Yaakov Avinu, last week's parsha, at the end of Vayigash, right? At the end of Vayigash, it says, Vayikchu es miknehem v'es rechusham asher rechoshu be'eretz Canaan vayavoyu Mitzrayma Yaakov v'chol. Right. They all came together. Itai. They all came together with Yaakov Avinu in that place. V'chol zara Itai. All his children came with him. All his children came with him. Okay. Now, what happened? Why does he talk about all of the rechush, the wealth that he acquired in Canaan? What happened to everything else? What happened to all of the other money? He made a lot of money. He made a lot of money when it came to Lavan. He came back with a big flock. He had a lot of, he was doing very, very well. Right? He was doing very, very, where is all of that? How come it doesn't talk about that? I'm going to tell you something amazing now. Here we go. This is a medrash. This is something awesome, unbelievable. Because in this week's parsha, it says like this. Here, I'll read it to you. After Yaakov Avinu passed away, Yosef went to Paroi and told Paroi about the idea that he has to leave Mitzrayim to go bury his father. Right? Now, there was two things here. Listen to this. This is fascinating. Listen to this. Yosef had a trump card. He had a card. He had his card. What was his card that he had in his pocket? He had something over Paroi. What did he have over Paroi? Yosef HaTzadik knew how to speak Lashon HaKodesh, but Paroi didn't. Paroi didn't know how to speak Hebrew, but Yosef did. And Yosef knew that Paroi couldn't speak Hebrew. Paroi did not want him to reveal to everybody that Yosef has one up on Paroi. So of course Paroi acquiesced and agreed. He agreed that Yosef would be able to go and bury his father. But listen to the words now. Ovi hishmiani lemar hine anochi meis b'kibri asher karosi, right? Karisi be'eretz Canaan. Shoma tikreini v'ata ala noah ve'ekvara es ovi v'ashuva. He tells these words to Paroi. That what? My father made me promise. He made me swear to him. A funny word. That he said like this, Hine anochi meis b'kivri asher karisi. What is this word karisi? So Rashi says a few pshatim on it. One, he says it means that he dug. One, it means he brought an idea of that it means to kona, to buy, to purchase, a purchase. And the next one that it means like to carry the pile. The pile. What pile? What is he talking about? So listen to this. That day when Esav and Yaakov met, that famous day when Esav was coming to Yaakov with the 400 men, and they finally met and they were discussing things. There was a transaction that took place there. What was the transaction? What was the transaction? Here it is. Yaakov Avinu said to Esav, I want you to sell me your right to be buried in the Me'arat HaMachpelah. Esav had the right to be buried in the Me'arat HaMachpelah. Yaakov didn't have that right. He said, I want you to sell it to me. Esav said, what are you going to give me? What are you going to... Last time you sold me, I sold you the Bechira, you gave me a bowl of lentil soup. Remember? You gave me a bowl of lentil soup. Hey, I learned. I'm not so stupid as I was back then. Now, hey, you want this? You want this piece of land? This piece of land, this place where I'm supposed to be buried? You want it? What are you going to pay for it? Yaakov Avinu took all of his money and he made a pile. And he made a kri. He made a big pile of all his money. of everything that he earned by Lavan. Everything. He said to Esav, I'm going to give you all of this money in return that you give me the right to be buried in the Me'arat HaMachpelah. Esav said gladly. He loved it. He saw the money. He saw that money. He couldn't turn it down. No problem. I'll take it. He took all the money. Yaakov Avinu said, wait a second, if we're going to do this, we have to write a contract. Esav said, fine, let's make a contract. So they made a contract and they wrote that Esav now sold his birthright. Esav sold his birthright to Yaakov Avinu. And they wrote it in a contract. They wrote that in a contract and Esav signed it. Perhaps they even had Adam that signed it. They signed this. It was a real binding contract. They came now. Let's go further now. After that, they traveled. They embalmed Yaakov Avinu for 40 days. They mourned Yaakov Avinu. They mourned for Yaakov Avinu another 30 days. The brothers mourned for Yaakov Avinu another 7 days, and they traveled for 8 days. Right? That's a total of 85 days. Okay, a total of 85. You're going to see why that's so significant in a minute, okay? Why there was 85 days. They come to Me'arat HaMachpelah. And something interesting happens over there. Something very interesting happens on the way. What happened? They came, and it says like this: Vayavoyu ad geren ha'otar oishe be'evra yarden. They were be'evra yarden. It's a very interesting thing. Why they went me'evra yarden? If they could have gone straight northeast, straight up from Mitzrayim to Hebron, why did they go me'evra yarden? It's another interesting thing. Vayispedu sham mispad gadol uchvoid me'oid. They eulogized him with a tremendous eulogy. Uchavoid me'oid. They gave a lot of respect. Vayas la'av Evel shivas yamim, and they mourned. The brothers mourned for him for 7 days. Rashi says something fascinating. Listen to this. It says there like this: that all of the Malachei Canaan, all of the kings of all the kingdoms of Canaan came out. All of them. Right? All of them. That means Oig Melech HaBashan was there. Because we know he lived from the time of Noah. He was already there. Right? That was the place of Sichon and Oig. Right? He knew. They came too. All of these guys came. All of the kings from all of Canaan came. And they wanted to wage war. And they wanted to wipe out the tribes. They wanted to wipe out the Shvatim. But they saw something. You know what they saw? They saw the Aron of Yaakov. And you know what was on the Aron of Yaakov? There was a crown on the Aron of Yaakov. And you know whose crown that was? It was Yosef's crown. Yosef was the king of Mitzrayim. King wore a crown. Yosef took his crown and he put his crown on the Aron of Yaakov Avinu. The king saw that, and they were petrified. They all took off their crowns, and they put their crowns around Yosef's crown, around his crown, on the coffin of Yaakov Avinu. Was that some honor? That was some beautiful honor. All of the kings took off their crowns and put their crowns on the Aron of Yaakov Avinu. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. They say that that's the end of time. That's the end of time when the Shivim Umas Ha'olam, the Shivim Ze'evim, the 70 wolves are going to come against Klal Yisrael. And then they're going to take their crowns off. And they're going to bow to Klal Yisrael. They're going to bow to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's going to be by Yovahu Yashem Echad U'Shma Yechad. We're waiting for that, Chevra. Any day now. Any day. It's coming. Any day that's coming now. Any moment, I hope. We hope. But listen to this. This is fascinating. All of this is it's unbelievable. The things you find in these parshas, it's mamish. You could spend weeks on each parsha. You can uncover all the stories that are inside the stories, and the stories in the story, and what was really going on behind. Unbelievable. It's all chidushim, unreal. So let's go back to Esav. We know the famous thing. I don't know how many of you have made it to the Me'arat HaMachpelah, but if you ever did, and any of our listeners that made it to Me'arat HaMachpelah, as you're walking into the Me'arat HaMachpelah, you pass a plaque. There's a plaque on the corridor. There's a corridor and there's a plaque. And on that plaque, they tell over the story that's written in Masechta Taanis, is a story of what happened on this day when the brothers came to bury Yaakov Avinu. They tell the story. And what does the story over there say? The story says that Esav came as well. He was another unwelcome visitor. He was another unwelcome participant in Yaakov Avinu's funeral. And he stood there and he said, "Hey, you can't bury Yaakov over here. This is my burial place." The brother said to him, "Hey, wait, Esav, we were standing there when our father gave you all his money. He paid you nicely for this land, and now you're going to say that it's yours?" The Medrash says, it's brought in the Gemara, that there was a fellow named Chushim ben Dan. He was the son of Dan. Chushim, his name was Chushim. The son of Dan, he was deaf. He was looking around and he was saying, "What's going on over here? What is going on over here? What is going on here? Why are they not burying my grandfather? What is going on over here?" He took a stick, a club. He beat Esav so hard in the head that Esav's head fell off. His eyes popped out. His eyes wind up rolling underneath the Aron of Yaakov Avinu. Under the Aron of Yaakov Avinu, the eyes went underneath the Aron of Yaakov, and his head rolled into the Me'arat HaMachpelah. So he did get buried. His head was buried in there. His head was buried. What happened? Chushim saw that Naphtali was Rotz Katzvi. Naphtali, the brother Naphtali, was like a deer. He ran very quickly. He went and he put on his running shoes, and he was going to run down to Mitzrayim. He was going to run down to Mitzrayim to go get that contract that Yaakov Avinu insisted that they wrote when Yaakov Avinu gave the money to Esav to get the burial right in the Me'arat HaMachpelah. What do you think of that? Is that not fascinating? I'm telling you, I learned this, you get goosebumps. I'm just to understand really what was going on. You try to put yourself there. Could you imagine standing there? And while this was all taking place, how they're saying, how can you say that this is yours? They said, we were there. We saw our father give the money to you. He didn't care. Now he said also this idea of 85 days. 85 days. What's the significance of 85 days? So listen here. Listen to this. It says that Yaakov traveled. It says that it's actually brought down. It's actually brought down by the Chassam Sofer. It's brought down by other tzaddikim also. It says where Yaakov Avinu traveled, v'nasa misukais. He was nasa misukais. So they say that Yaakov Avinu actually died the first day of Sukkot. He died the first day of Sukkot. That's Yaakov Avinu's yard site. If you count on the first day of Sukkot to Asara B'Teves, which will be a Me'arat Hashem this Friday, it's 85 days. It's 85 days. So we see that Esav, his yahrzeit is on Asara B'Teves. Right? The destruction of Esav and Amalek and everyone else and all the Rishayim of the world, their destruction comes out on Asara B'Teves. It's also Rav Noson's yahrzeit. Rav Noson Mibreslov, the holy Rav Noson, it's his yahrzeit on Asara B'Teves. It's also my grandmother, Aleh Shalom, Esther Ruchama Bas Rav Chaim Alevi. It's her yahrzeit also on Asara B'Teves. I miss my grandmother so much. She taught me so much over the years. Unbelievable. So Asara B'Teves is a very strange yontiv. It's a very strange day. Why? The Gemara says that even if Asara B'Teves would fall on Shabbos, we would push off Shabbos to fast on Asara B'Teves. So the Chassam Sofer says something so amazing. Listen to these words. The Chassam Sofer says that a fast day that's for the future, you will push off Shabbos. For example, if a person has a terrible dream, Chas v'sholom on Friday night, he has a terrible dream, and he's very worried about the dream. He's allowed to fast Shabbos. Because it's something that's coming up, something that we're commemorating. We won't fast on Shabbos. For example, Tisha B'Av, we're commemorating the day that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. That's why we push off Shabbos. We push off Tisha B'Av. We don't fast on Shabbos, right? We don't fast on Shabbos, right? When it comes to any of the other fast days that come on, we just push them off. It doesn't matter. But Yom Kippur, we know we had it. I think this past year, Yom Kippur was on Shabbos. It was a Shabbos Yom Kippur. We fast on Shabbos. Says the Chavetz Chaim. Why? Because it's something for the future. Right? Yom Kippur is something for the future. Because you're davening to Hashem that you should have a good year coming up. So therefore you can have the fast day on Yom Kippur. When it comes to Asara B'Teves though, Asara B'Teves is the future as well. Yes, it's the commemoration of the day that Nebuchadnezzar laid a siege around the walls of Yerushalayim. Yes, it is. Yes, it's a commemoration of that. He did that back then. That was Bayis Rishon. That wasn't Bayis Sheni. That was Bayis Rishon. But now we understand what it is. It's 85 days. It's 85 days from Sukkot to come to Asara B'Teves. 85 days. What's the significance? Because Chushim was the one that killed Esav. Do you know what letters is Chushim? How about Mashiach? Chushim is the same letters as Mashiach. So that means we're waiting now for Mashiach Tzidkenu to come. And if Mashiach Tzidkenu comes, he's going to take care of Esav. His first stop will be at the United Nations. It'll take care of all the business over there, with all of those nut jobs over there, with all those Rishayim over there. With all the Rishayim. And then he'll probably go to the ICC over there in The Hague, in South Africa. He'll probably go pay them a visit also and set them straight. They'll be begging for forgiveness. All of them. They'll all be begging for forgiveness. When they see the truth. Mashiach is going to come. The world is going to see the truth, Chevra. It won't be any way. It'll turn back before the Chet Eitz Hadas Toiv Ra. Toiv will be Toiv, Ra will be Ra. They won't be able to misconstrue that this is good, what's bad is good, and what's good is bad. What they do now, they can't do that anymore. When Mashiach comes, that's why it was Chushim, specifically that one that killed Esav. that killed Esav, that knocked his head off. That knocked his head off. He hit him so hard, his head fell off and his eyes rolled out. What's the idea of the eyes? The eyes is ayin. Ayin. You know what the gematria of ayin is? 70. 70. How many nations are there? 70 nations. 70 nations, their eyes were laid underneath Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu is above them. Yaakov Avinu is above them. With the Kedusha and the Tahara of Yaakov Avinu, he's above them. So these are some of the most amazing things. There's so many beautiful things to talk about in the parsha. I don't know. This is the week that we have Chazak. Now we understand. Now we can understand why we always read Parshas Vayechi around the same time. Most of the time, it's around the same time, right? With the calendar, works out when Asar B'Tevis falls out. Because Asar B'Tevis is a fast for the future. It's a fast for the future. The Chasam Sefer says on Asar B'Tevis, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a judgment. There's a judgment going on. You know what the judgment says the Chavetz Chaim is going on? The Chasam Sefer says is going on Asar B'Tevis? Hashem is judging whether Mashiach should come this year or not. How do you like that? Asara B'Tevis, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is judging, should Mashiach come this year? Now we understand how important the day is. We understand how important that day is. It's such an important day because it's a day of the future. It's a day of the future, and that's why we'll even have this day on Erev Shabbos. You're probably wondering, everyone's wondering, why do we have to have our fast day on Erev Shabbos? And there's a whole machlokes, can I make Shabbos early? And if I make Shabbos early, can I then break my fast because it's already Shabbos? And this and that. There's a big Torah on all of this. All of these things. But I'll tell you one thing, it's also the shortest fast day of the whole year. Asar B'Tevis is the shortest fast day of the whole year. Because sunrise is late, and sunset is early, right? So if you have sunrise late and sunset early, that makes it a short fast day, right? It's the shortest fast day of the year. But it's one of the most powerful fast days of the year, in second to Yom Kippur, right? Because Yom Kippur, the whole year is dependent on Yom Kippur, and that's why we understand that we'll fast and we'll fast on Yom Kippur, and we'll break, and we'll not push off the Shabbos, and we will keep the Yom Kippur on because that's something for the future. So too is Asar B'Tevis, a fast for the future. What's the future? Should Mashiach come? The greatest question for the whole world. Should Mashiach come? Should Mashiach come? I hope, with all my heart, b'schus all of the tzedakah, and b'schus all of the Torah, and b'schus all of the chasadim that Klal Yisrael has been doing now so beautifully over the past 460 some odd days since October 7th. How Klal Yisrael really stood up to the test. How Klal Yisrael is sending things out of Yom. They're sending things. I know we run the Super Softer Packers in Eretz Yisrael here. Baruch Hashem, my wife runs this organization. It's wonderful. We pack packages for the Chayalim. We send packages for the what do you call it? For the Mifunim, those were displaced. She sends packages to people in the hospital. And so on, and people contribute. It's so beautiful. People contribute so that we can make things and give things to the Chayalim. It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable how every Jew, I believe, even they're affiliated, they're not affiliated. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They feel some connection to Klal Yisrael. More now than they probably felt ever. More now than ever. You look around what's going on in the world, and the world is going crazy, that we're getting together, that Klal Yisrael is getting together. We have an achdus. The whole idea, Rabbi Nachman, Rabbi Nassim, was to teach us to find the Nekuda Tova, the whole Torah of Reish Pei Beis. Reish Pei Beis is finding the Nekuda Taiva in everybody and in yourself. And in yourself. Look for the good. Look for the good. Why? Because when you look for the good, what you're actually doing is you're actually bringing the person to a good judgment. When you find the good in somebody, you find that you're bringing the goodness to the person. You're judging the person favorably. It's a very, very important thing, and we have to make sure we judge ourselves favorably also. Find that nekuda tova. Find that good point. We all have a good point. Everybody has a good point. Everybody. There's no such a thing. Everyone has a good point, whatever they're doing. It doesn't matter. They're giving tzedakah. They're helping someone. They're calling someone. Giving chizuk to somebody. It's all wonderful. It doesn't matter. Find that. Grab onto that. Grab onto the nekuda taiva. Yosef HaTzadik. We spoke about him, and I'm going to finish with Yosef HaTzadik now. Oh, Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef HaTzadik passes away in this parsha. Right? It's the last pasuk of the parsha. Right? Yosef HaTzadik passes away. Yosef HaTzadik is not merit. He doesn't merit to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. Right? We know that. The Shvatim did not merit to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. As we know that when we went out of Mitzrayim, we took the Aronot, we took the caskets of Yosef and the other Shvatim that were buried in Mitzrayim. We took them with us. And that's why you can find the Kvarim in Eretz Yisrael from all of the different tzaddikim. And where is Yosef buried today? In Shechem. Yosef is buried today in Shechem. Right? What they call, I think they call that Nablus. Right? Nablus is Shechem. Is that correct? I think they call it in English Nablus. I don't know how you get Nablus from Shechem, but either way. Okay. You know, Yaakov Avinu said that he conquered Shechem and he gave Shechem to Yosef. And that's why Yosef is buried in Shechem. It says it in the parsha. He conquered it. Becharbi and Bekashti. He says, I conquered it with my bow and my arrow. He conquered it with his bow and his arrow, and he gave it to Yosef, and that's why Yosef's kever is in Shechem. And it's another amazing thing. There are three places in the world. That we know that we bought rightfully, right? 3 places. What's one of them? The Me'arat HaMachpelah. Abraham Avinu paid b'kesef moleh. 400 he paid 400 silver coins. That was perfect coins to buy it. We know that David HaMelech bought the Harabayas. The Makom HaMikdash, David HaMelech bought it. He bought it rightfully. It was his. And Shechem. These are the 3 places that the world fights and argues with us more than anything else. Isn't that funny? Isn't that ironic? Hebron. It's actually Hebron. It's Hebron. So they say it's theirs. And the Temple Mount. Oh, what do they call this whole war? The war from October 7th. They call it the flood waters of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. That's what the Hamasniks, they call it that. They know that the war is about that. They know, and we know that also. And we have to just remember, when we do things, and we do things together, ba'achdos, and we give each other chizuk, that's the greatest thing that we can do. So I wish everybody that we should have this week, Emet Hashem, a meaningful fast. Because again, why do we fast? We fast to remind ourselves that look how vulnerable we really are. If we don't eat and drink for a little while, look how weak we get. But the Almighty HaKadosh Baruch Hu is where we're supposed to show our credence, give our credence to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the all-important and all-powerful one. Not like us. And it's just to remind us that. The whole idea is tshuva. The whole idea of the fast is tshuva. Not to look at the watch, the fast is another hour. It's another 26 minutes. No! The whole idea is another 26 minutes, another 15 minutes, the same more Tehillim. Say more Tehillim. Talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Come back to HaKadosh. But that's the whole point. How is Mashiach going to come? HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want, like when we left Mitzrayim, only 1/5 left. V'chamushim alumi Mitzrayim. Only 1/5. 20% of the Jews left. Hashem doesn't want it. He doesn't want to leave everyone back now. So let us all be zeicha to do tshuva. And not only we do tshuva, daven for people that you know that need to do tshuva. And daven for them that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help them to also do tshuva. That we can do. That we can certainly do. We all know family, we have friends, and we have business acquaintances, and we have neighbors, relatives, whatever. We know people that they're not thinking the right way. You can't change their thoughts. But what you can do is you can daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to set them straight. You can daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to please shine His light on them. Shine His light on them. That we can do. And with that, I wish everyone that we should have, like I said, a meaningful fast and and it should be a lechtige Shabbos. Really a lechtige Shabbos, because this can be the year now that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides that Mashiach is coming. Could you believe that, Chevra? This Friday, this Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Parshat Vayechi, which is Shabbos Chazak. Chazak, v'nis chazek. This is the Shabbos. Why is it this is the Shabbos of Chazak? Because this is the Chazak that we're waiting for. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Mitzvah Hashem, will send us Mashiach Tzidkenu, Bikara B'yameinu Mamish. And we'll all together be able to go to come to Eretz Yisrael and to be able to march together, arm in arm, walking up to in Yerushalayim, to the Har HaBayis, to the new Beis HaMikdash, and greet HaKadosh Baruch Hu there at the Har HaBayis. I wish everyone, thank you for listening, and all the listeners from wherever you are. And if you have any comments or questions, I'm going to put my email address and phone number in the video that goes on YouTube, and you can always contact me. Thank you, everybody.